Looks like we're getting a nice full room, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Chicago Inno's Inno on Fire event. I'm Jim Dahlke, Senior Editor at Chicago Inno.
Hey everyone, and I'm Catherine Davis, the Associate Editor at Chicago Inno. We're so thrilled to have you all here today with us as we celebrate our 2020 honorees and learn more about some of Chicago's fastest growing startups. If you haven't already, you can see all of our Fire winners that we unveiled last month at chicagoinno.com, and there you can also sign up for the Beat. That's our daily email newsletter and your go-to source for all things Chicago startups and innovation.
It's crazy, but this is actually our fifth Inno on Fire, previously named 50 on Fire. Chicago Inno launched in 2014, so I can't believe we've had now 5 of these. And if you've joined us for this event before, you know things look a little different now than they did in the past. Typically, we gather everyone together, all the winners, their employees, friends, family, for a big event venue with drinks and bites and music and a video displaying all the 50 winners. But this year, like most events around the country, we are going virtual. And rather than throw a big party, we're changing up the format a bit with a focus on hearing from some of Chicago's top startup founders whose companies appear on this year's Inno on Fire list.
So, you know, I'm sure you've all experienced your own challenges this year. 2020 has been unprecedented, as has just this week. But despite those challenges caused by the coronavirus, you know, many of Chicago's startups continue to grow and thrive. And our Inno on Fire list is a representation and celebration of that. So today during this event, we're going to learn more about some of those growth stories. We're going to start with a fireside chat with Steve Galanis, the CEO of Cameo, followed by a panel with the founders of Chowbus, M1 Finance, 4 Degrees, and the Mom Project. At the end of the event, we'll be unveiling our Inno Blazers, which are the top companies from each Fire category. Those are determined by a panel of judges. But, you know, for now, let's kick things off with our fireside chat moderated by Jim. So I'm going to hop off here and you guys can take it away.
Cool. Bring Steven in. All right, cool. So to kick things off, we're going to chat with Steve Galanis of Cameo. You know, even as the coronavirus has no doubt been rough on many businesses in 2020, there's been plenty of bright spots in Chicago tech this year, and perhaps none more so than Cameo. Stephen, we're going to get to the growth you guys are seeing in just a minute, but you know, let's start with politics, shall we? You know, you guys launched your first kind of major political effort this year, holding a Biden fundraiser, essentially allowing celebrities to send the money that they raise on the Cameo platform for performing their videos to the Biden campaign. Tell us a little bit about how that went for you guys and the future of political activity on Cameo.
Thanks, Jim. And before we get started, I want to wish my mom a happy birthday. She's tuning in, so happy birthday, Mom.
Yeah,
as far as the political stuff, this is something that we've been thinking about for about 3 years. Amy Singh, our general counsel, Arthur Leopold, had been thinking a lot about, you know, how do we get involved with politics? We had already from the beginning had talent raising money for charities of their choice, so it seemed very natural that politics would be something we'd be able to do. There were a lot of hurdles, as you can imagine. Federal election law is no joke. So the compliance side of it was something we were working on for a long time. At the same time, we also saw a lot of political class and the political pundits coming on Cameo. And in fact, just this week, I saw that our 15 Donald Trump impersonators on Cameo have done $3.2 million in bookings this year. So there was a lot of interest both from the pundits, there was interest from talent getting involved to support, and there was also, you know, obviously interest from the electorate of having different talent come on and give messages that were political or, you know, making fun of one's political beliefs as well. So it's something we decided to lead into. At Cameo, we're a nonpartisan company, so we took this not only to the Biden campaign, we took it to the Trump campaign as well. Trump campaign actually told us no, you know, which is surprising. And, you know, hopefully if Donald doesn't win, he'll be on the platform soon and maybe make some of that $3.2 million himself. But at the same time, we wanted to offer that to both sides, and we're really excited for the future of political fundraising on Cameo now that the foundation's been laid. We know the compliance, and we think this is a rinse and repeat every 2 years from now.
Did the Trump campaign give you guys a reason for saying no?
It turned out by the time we got done with all the compliance stuff, it was like we were about 30, 35 days out from the election. It's really complicated because there's payment processors, special ones that need to be used. So someone in China isn't buying a Cameo, and basically on top of that, let's say, Jim, you maxed out your donations to a certain political candidate. This system needs to go check to make sure in compliance. So it took us a while to get agreements done with WinRed, which is on the Republican side, and Act Blue on the Democratic side, because of course they can't do anything together, so they have to have their own payment processors. By the time we got there, the Trump campaign just felt it was too close to the election. And and then on the flip side too, I do think in general we find that the talent base probably leans more liberal. It may have been harder to have to take this to our talent group to see who would fundraise to Trump, where I think if you look at even Biden in the last days, right, he's up on stage with John Legend and Lady Gaga. So I think there's a much deeper connection to Hollywood on the Democratic side than the Republican side.
And what was the impact for the Biden campaign? About how much did the talent end up raising?
I'm not exactly sure where it came out, but I think a couple of the really exciting things was we had some talent that our customers have been asking for a long time. People like Andy Cohen from Bravo, people like Jason Alexander from Seinfeld. So they were coming on, and this was kind of the why now finally. So again, I think just like the Nevada count, we're still in the back figuring out exactly what the impact was. And we just look forward to growing it in future years too.
So, in terms of the political sphere, you've got the pundits that are on there, and you've got the impersonators. When will the candidates themselves be on Cameo?
I mean, I think this is still something where this was probably the things that we did this year, I think, were the first steps towards that happening. I think this was like dip your toe in the water, get some surrogates who would otherwise have been trying to do some fundraiser for you and try to do something else. Hopefully in the next 2 years we get that, but again, we'll see.
Right on. All right, well, let's talk about what the year 2020 has been like for Cameo. I mean, you guys have been on a rocket ship. What has been the catalyst to Cameo's growth in 2020?
The growth's coming on two sides. Number one, in the supply side of our marketplace, talent that hadn't come on Cameo previously, we're usually saying no for one of two reasons. Either A, I make too much money, or B, I have no time. And in a world where all live sports, all live entertainment, film production, concerts, everything stopped. Suddenly, people had time and they weren't making money. Even in baseball, for example, major league players made 15% of their salary this year. So they have kids, they have mortgages, they have bills to pay, and a lot of them gave us an opportunity to come on the platform right now, and then they tried it and they liked it. So that was on the supply side. And of course, the way the Cameo business model works, when a talent comes on, they can turn their fans into our customers for free. So it really started that flywheel. So supply side aggregation was something that really drove demand. On the flip side, just think about what happened in May, what happened in June when everybody was locked down. Mother's Day happened. I wasn't able to, go home and see my mom for Mother's Day. So I sent her a Cameo instead. And that's something that literally, hundreds of thousands, if not, million people have done this year. Life's big moments are happening. Birthdays are happening. Babies are being born. People are getting engaged. People are graduating from college and high school. Those magical moments in life were usually those are sealed with a hug or a kiss. They were sealed with a Cameo this year.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, when we checked in for stories that we were writing about you guys on Chicago Inno, back in the May, June timeframe, you guys were talking about kind of like record growth. You guys had a profitable month in there. As life has come back to, I wouldn't say we're anywhere near normal, right? But as like things have opened up and there's been more things for people to do in general, have you guys continued to see the growth hang on, or has it fluctuated a bit?
It's coming back down to earth, but again, when you're zooming out, We hit our financial plan for the year 75 days before the year was over. So a lot of happy investors, a lot of happy employees. The talent are making more money than ever. And right now we're gearing up for, our busiest season, which really goes from Thanksgiving through Christmas. We tend to do about 25% of our whole year that week. So we've got really, really high hopes for the holiday season, and everything we're doing right now is how do we get the site ready? How do we get the inventory that people want? How do we make sure that the new talent are ready to go? That's everything my team's working on right now, and we're looking forward to a huge Christmas.
Speaking of Christmas, I mean, I'm sure the mall Santa Claus situation is not going to be the same as it has been in the past, right? Are you guys taking advantage of that scenario at all in terms of connecting kids to Santa?
Yeah, we're doing a couple different things. Number one, we have Santas on Cameo. We have plenty of Santas. If you need a fun Christmas gift for a kid, go check out a ton of our Santas on there. We're also going to be trying one of our new products that we'll be launching in January. It's called Cameo Calls. And what that is, it's our meet and greet product. And we're talking about around December 9th, piloting the meet and greet call with Santa. And this would actually simulate going to see Santa in the mall, which isn't happening this year.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. As you guys look into 2021, how do you continue to build off this momentum, right? Like, what are you guys looking for 2021 in terms of continued growth?
I think it all starts with team building. Like, we had such a big year this year. It really gave us the opportunity to go and make some incredible hires. And just in the last month, we've had a COO start. We've had a CFO start. We've had a chief people officer start. We've hired a VP of ops. We're really hiring world-class engineers, PMs, and just continuing to build out the team. And that's what we're focused on. So we really felt like the fact that Cameo was having its year and it was really doing well, we were able to, poach people from an Uber, Airbnb, other places, because in the same way that our business model is positively impacted, some other companies, really had challenging years, and that was a big opportunity for us.
Mm-hmm. What has been the key to taking Cameo from a novelty to something that has real lasting legs here, and from the end user standpoint, in terms of a one-off thing that somebody tries, to something that is in their kind of like gifting tool bag that they're using with their family and friends? What have you been able to kind of hit on there that it's just more than just a novelty or a gimmick?
I think it's like literally the $10 billion question for us, right? How do we delight people the first time and then get them to come back over and over and over again? That's something that my team's working on every day. But in the meantime, it's very clear that we had a product that was very well positioned for where the puck's been going. And COVID, in many ways, was just that pull forward that took us maybe 2 or 3 years into the future and has continued to accelerate our growth. So for us, I think it starts with two things. Number one, primarily we've had a gifting use case. So 85% of candidates today are bought as gifts. Our mission is to create the most personalized and authentic fan experiences on earth. I would argue that today we don't actually create the best fan experiences for the person that's coming on the site and booking. So we're thinking about new product lines like Cameo Calls, like our fan club product that's coming up, like Cameo Direct, our texting product, like Cameo Live, our Zoom product. And we're trying to dig deeper into the for self-use case, because ultimately I have a limited budget for gifts. I have an unlimited budget for myself. So that's one of the things that we think in consumer we can dive deeper on. Secondly, I think it's really on both the talent side and the customer side, just having a really high NPS product, right? The NPS is over 80 on both the talent side and the customer side. That's up there with a Tesla. That's up there with an iPhone. It's literally one of the most enjoyable products on earth. And when you build great product that people would, like on the talent side, they would do cameos for free, but they're getting paid, it's kind of the ultimate. And on the flip side, when you're providing the amount of joy that we are, when you're really creating those magical moments, even if you bought Cameo one time or you've heard about someone that got a Cameo, like, you feel like warm and fuzzy inside and you feel great about it. And that, I think that'll go a long way too, that to helping us really make sure that this is an enduring company. It's not just a flash in the pan.
Totally. Let's kind of go high level for a second. I want to kind of get a sense of what business trends you're seeing at Cameo and just across the landscape about how 2020 has impacted the way we're going to do business moving forward. Any high level takeaways that you've seen as the CEO of a fast growing startup that might apply to other folks?
Well, I think the biggest one is going to be the trend towards work from anywhere. story that's been written about. Cameo is one day away from signing a new lease in full market. Our old office, which many of you on this call have probably been to, was knocked down on April 1st. So literally it is a hole in the ground at 400 North Aberdeen, which was our old home. We were one day away from signing. I had spidey sense we were going to sign in full market. I ended up pulling out, and literally we are homeless. We do not have office anywhere in Chicago. We do not have office in LA. We do not have office in London. We got rid of all of our real estate. Cameo is still headquartered in Chicago. We're a Chicago company, but our employees can work from anywhere on earth today. And I think that's a huge trend. For a company like ours, it's given us the ability to recruit the best people on earth, and they don't have to have, had family in Naperville, or they don't have to have gone to University of Illinois. Like, this is opening up for us. And when you look at my executive team that I've hired, our COO is in the Bay Area, our CFO is in New York. These people literally would not have come work for us if they had to move to Chicago. And that is something that I think is really exciting for a company like ours, to be recruiting the best people no matter where they are.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of benefits to that, but what are the challenges you've seen so far, and what challenges do you expect by not having that physical location?
I think, we had a great culture. Anybody that had been to Cameo office, it was a magical place. Like, you come in, you feel the energy. We loved doing events there. We loved having people there. We had the red carpet when you walked in, and the red velvet rope. And, we tried to make that office feel like you were walking onto the red carpet at the Oscars. And replicating that is, of course, going to be challenging when 1/3 of Cameo employees have never worked in a Cameo office, right? Think about that. 1/3 of Cameo employees have never worked in an office. Right now, I'm in Miami. I've got a few of my new executives here, and we're trying to build a team. We're trying to team build and build trust. But these are all people that had never met each other in real life, because they've all started in this post-pandemic state. And I think longer term, it's going to be interesting to see what companies can do to maintain the culture that they had in offices, and how do you make that better in a work from anywhere environment. But I also think that on the flip side, some of the challenges are for new hires, right? Everybody, when you join a new company remote right now, you are just like a block on someone's a Zoom block on somebody's calendar, right? Those serendipitous moments of seeing someone at lunch or running into someone at the water cooler, those are gone. So, like, what are we doing to make sure that it's there? And frankly, like, we've actually seen on the margins, some of the people that we've hired, during COVID, that have been with us for, under 3 months, they come in and, maybe they're not the right fit, and we're missing something in the interview process over Zoom, or, they feel that working this way isn't how they want to work. And, we've had employee churn, like, on the margins there, which is very different from if they're in the office and getting there. So I think retaining, recruiting, training new people, those are all going to be a really big challenge. And for us at Cameo, we've decided, hey, this work from anywhere is going to be the reality for at least the next couple of years for most companies. By committing to going this way, we have burned the boats. We have said, I don't want our employees at all hands every week asking me when we're going back to office. Let's instead channel all of our efforts to building the best company culture on earth of a work from anywhere place.
Totally. I got a couple questions that have come through from folks who are on. This one's from Frederick. Who's the top talent on your list that you'd like to have that has not committed yet to Cameo?
Who is the top talent on our list that we don't have that we love? If you go by search results, so we take a look at anyone that is searched for on Cameo that we don't have, The Rock tends to be number one there, in addition to people like David Dobrik. So those are people we'd love to have on the platform and don't have today.
Yeah. This is kind of relative to what we were talking about earlier, but Hunter asks kind of about politics. How did you decide to throw your hat into the political ring? And are you worried about losing potential customers and users just based on the nature of US politics?
Well, as I said, that's why as a company, we are nonpartisan. The Biden partnership we did, the exact same partnership was offered to the Trump campaign as well. It just happened that they said no, and the Biden campaign said yes. So my guess is that by the 2022 election, now that we have the infrastructure built on both the Win Red and Act Blue side, or Think Blue side, we will be engaging with candidates of both sides of the aisle. And in the same way that candidates of both sides are on Twitter, or candidates of both sides are on Instagram, we're a platform And it's going to be the same for us as well.
Cool. And before we go, give us something that you guys have in the works, something that you guys are building, something new that you guys are excited about that you haven't rolled out yet, but something that's people should look out for.
Yeah, look out for the Cameo Calls product. It's going to be a lot of fun. Meet and greets, were such a core part of the fan experience, whether that's at a concert or whether that's at a fan convention, or think of something like the Bulls or Blackhawks conventions. There's still demand for it, but right now there's no great solution. We think our Cameo Calls product is going to be the answer to that. It's going to be the first synchronous video product from us. We rolled out the Cameo Live. That was really cool. But this will be a cheaper version. It'll be a 2-minute version, and you'll be able to wait in line, meet your favorite person, and get a selfie with them as well. So we're really excited about Cameo Calls. Look out for that.
Cool. Awesome. Stephen, hey, thanks so much for being a part of this. Happy birthday to your mom, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jeb.
Cool. All right, we are going to now kick it to Catherine, who's going to dive even deeper into some Chicago tech growth stories of 2020 in our next Fire panel. I will dip out and let the panel come on in.
Hey everyone, Catherine back here. The panelists can turn on their cameras now and we'll get started. So, this panel includes 4 companies from the Inno on Fire list, and we chose each because their industry and business has been impacted in a particularly interesting way this year. We've got Allison Robinson, the CEO of the Mom Project, which is an online platform that helps connect viable female candidates to employers. We've also have Brian Barnes, the CEO of M1 Finance, a no-fee investing app. Next, we have Linxin Wen, the CEO of Chowbus, which is an Asian food delivery service, and Ablorde Ashigbi, the CEO of 4 Degrees, which is a professional networking site. So first, I just want to say congratulations to all of you again, and thanks so much for being part of our event today, especially this week, this month, this year. I'm going to be asking questions over the next 30 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to questions from the audience. So if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. But welcome, everyone. Each of you were picked for this panel because, despite the pandemic, your startup has continued to grow and in some cases even thrive during this challenging time. So, I want to start by each of you telling us a little bit about your company and the industry you're operating in and how COVID has impacted it and how. Are COVID market conditions favoring your product or service, or, is there something else at work? So we can start with Allison.
Hi, thank you. So hello, everyone. Founder and CEO of the Mom Project. I started the company about 5 years ago while I was on maternity leave. Prior to that, I'd been running Pampers Innovation at North America out of Cincinnati. And I had my son and realized how quickly my priorities were changing and was looking for something like the Mom Project where I could find work that was really compatible with motherhood and give me the work-life integration I was looking for. So 5 years later, it's been just such an incredible journey. We've built a double-sided marketplace that has over 300 highly skilled women from across the country, and we connect them with incredible brands that are eager and excited to hire moms. I would say the pandemic, it's such an interesting time for women in the workplace, particularly mothers. I would say we've seen a lot of tailwinds in our business. We had a very diversified customer portfolio that leaned heavily project-based contingent work. And so we've really seen that take off during the pandemic as many companies slowed down their full-time hiring, but work still had to get done. So we had a really agile workforce that they could tap into, and have really just seen that be explosive for us over the last 6 months. Our mom community is interesting. Many women have children at home, some of which they're trying to acclimate to remote learning. And so I would say the supply growth hasn't probably been as much as you would think, given how much women have been affected by job losses. But we've really taken the opportunity to offer more to our community of moms during their time of need, and so have launched some really great features that we're really excited about during the pandemic.
Great. Ablorde, we can transition to you in 4 Degrees.
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Ablorde, the co-founder and CEO of 4 Degrees. So Chicago-based software company that focuses on helping teams manage and maximize what we describe to be their most important asset, which are their relationships and relationship networks. So today, primarily a B2B business that's sold into a suite of kind of generally professional services industries. So businesses that rely pretty heavily on relationships. And so in our business, I'd say interesting, the pandemic probably had a couple of different effects. The first is in the early days, I think the world kind of rightfully so, like took a pause for a sec and everyone was just like, what's going on here? Like, are our businesses going to be okay? Like, are our portfolio companies, in the case of our investment clients, going to be okay? And so that certainly took primacy. But then after that, I think we all recognize that the nature of collaborating in a world where you can't all be in person, where you're not co-located, where you're not going to conferences is not nearly the same as it was before. And so digital tools like ours that serve as this collaboration layer to help a team essentially collaborate through who they know and who they're connected to, and ensure you maintain these connections that historically you would have run into someone randomly in the hallway before, but can no longer do, and become more important in this use case. And so we certainly see some tailwinds from that have enabled us to continue to grow and accelerate.
Got it. Brian, what's the latest at M1?
Yeah, so I'm Brian Barnes. I'm the founder and CEO of M1 Finance. We're also about 5 years old. We're a holistic personal finance application or platform. We offer 3 main products: M1 Invest, which is free automated investing in a custom stock or ETF portfolio. We have M1 Borrow, which is a low cost and flexible line of credit based on your portfolio's value. And we have M1 Spend, which is an integrated high yield checking account with high cashback on debit card. And so from pick your favorite financial institution and, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or, Vanguard, Schwab, all of those were built over years, decades, if not centuries. And I think, M1 definitely has that ethos of we're trying to build a sustainable, durable, large financial institution and do it over the coming years and decades. And so we're less concerned on sort of specific point in time. That being said, I do think there's broad trend towards digitization and sort of everything, and finances is no different. And we think of the premier personal finance account of the future as it personalizes it to your heart's content, and then software automates and optimizes in the background. That's what we're building towards. And I do think the pandemic sort of accelerated the shift towards the primary interactions with your finances are all going to be digital, software, app driven, versus sitting down from a suit and tied person and having a steak dinner or something. So, I think it accelerated the efforts, accelerated the transition. And so it was a tailwind for us. And, hopefully we'll maintain the momentum into the coming years.
Great. Linxin?
Hey, hello. Yeah, this is Linxin, so CEO and the co-founder of Chowbus. So as you know, we are food delivery platform, and now it's a focus on the aging food. So basically, it's like I came to the United States about 7 years ago to pursue my master's degree here from China. So the reason I started the company is because I found out so many restaurants they are not on any platform. So I really want to build a platform to serve these underserved restaurants, also to introduce people this kind of authentic food. So yeah. Now we're currently in 27 cities, and we really want to build a kind of infrastructure for the independent restaurant. And yeah, the pandemic is definitely a boost to our business. Before, we are growing 300% year over year. Since this thing happened, now we're growing 500 to 700% year over year. And it's just more and more people stay at home, and they just order the delivery more. And also more and more restaurants, before they didn't do the delivery, but they decided to give a try. They realized actually they can make a decent amount of money by doing delivery. So it's just a change in people's behavior, so yeah.
Right. Okay. And so, Chowbus, I mean, you guys are seeing crazy growth this year, like you just explained. Much of the reason for that is because people are home and turning to food delivery more. But how do you plan to, extend Chowbus's success even after the pandemic is over? How do you, retain a lot of these new customers and even, delivery workers, and to make sure it's not just sort of a moment in time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great question. So first, our customer are very loyal. It's like most of them are actually Chowbus Plus members, so who pay $9.99 per month, kind of like a subscription, to get unlimited free delivery. So they order pretty much 7 times per month, like average order size of $50. Pretty much they spend like $350 on platform monthly, and it's just I think this thing just changes people behavior, permanently. Now they realize how convenient it is to order delivery. Also, it's very affordable. It's actually cheaper than you taking an Uber to a restaurant. And more importantly, it's like we see some city gradually reopen, but we don't see any performance change. Actually, we're still growing quickly. So yeah, and also as I mentioned before, it's just so many restaurants decide to try to do the food delivery. It just open up the supply side. So yeah.
Okay. So one thing I want to talk about with you, Allison, specifically is, sort of this trend we're seeing where so many women are leaving the workforce. COVID, working from home, taking care of a family is becoming overwhelming for a lot of women, especially when, sort of gender norms and roles have them doing 2 full-time jobs at home these days. So can you talk a little bit about how the Mom Project is working to offset some of COVID's impact on women's careers, and what you're doing differently now than maybe you were last year?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Catherine. Women have been in the fight of their lives, really different from the recession of 2008 and the Great Depression. Women have been most penalized by the pandemic. If you look at the jobs lost right after the pandemic, about 60% of them were held by women. Some of that was their representation in sectors like retail and hospitality, and a lot of frontline workers. So we went through significant job loss, and then on top of that, you've had basically the unraveling of already very fragile childcare infrastructure. Daycares, these are businesses that operate on razor thin margins. So many of them, unfortunately, will not be able to open their doors back, and that's been preventing a lot of women from getting back to work, and nearly the 1 million that left in September. I think for me as the founder, that's made my responsibility for moms greater than ever. I founded a business to keep women in the workplace, and I'm looking at the BLS data, and this is not okay. So I think we've been thinking really creatively with employers how we can retain women. And for some, it's taken different forms. For some, it's going to their ERG, employee resource groups, and just talking to moms about how they can better negotiate flexibility with their manager. And maybe they can't sustain a 40, 50-hour work week right now, but they can do a part-time schedule. For some, we're actually taking women who are thinking about leaving and creating talent clouds where they can tap into project-based work so they don't have to leave the company altogether. So we've seen companies really lean in solving this problem very creatively with us. As Stephen had shared earlier too, we're just seeing massive shifts in workplace, non-linear work week, the shift to remote. These are all things that we're really advocating for with employers. And then on the talent side, our 300,000 moms, we've really kind of had some rapid response programs that we launched right after the pandemic. For one, we launched a $500,000 Better Together fund that were small business grants to keep moms employed in jobs by small businesses that we knew were going to be impacted the most. We've also launched some really fun features like resume rev. So for moms who maybe got laid off, how did she really demonstrate her skills in a really beautiful way? We have Unity Hour, where we bring really incredible leaders like Valerie Jarrett together every Friday to speak to our moms on topics ranging from navigating a workforce reentry. And then finally, we really believe in the power of shared experiences. So we launched a really cool program called Rally, where we connect our moms with a peer-to-peer mentor who can kind of be their coach and hold them accountable. So we're doing all we can. It never feels like enough, but we're really trying as hard as we can to stop this backslide.
Another sort of impact that COVID has had is just on how we communicate with each other, right? Like this year's Inno on Fire event, we're all virtual from our respective homes. Usually, our Inno on Fire event is a great networking opportunity. Just because, the tech community's there, investors are there. If you want to get involved in Chicago tech, that's, of one of the events of the year that you look forward to going to. And so Ablorde, my next question's for you. In a COVID world and remote work, how have you seen users engage with 4 Degrees differently this year as they work to build strong networks, whether it's finding new business relationships or a new job or anything else?
Yeah, I would say the overarching theme that I think Stephen mentioned during his fireside chat is this idea of like the loss of serendipity, right? So before you'd run into people at an event, you'd pass someone in the hallway, you'd have a quick conversation about if you knew someone who worked at this company, or you could almost trust that if you hadn't talked to this person recently, that the way the Chicago technology community worked, as an example, was you're going to run into them during some kind of collective event somewhere. And in a world where we're all sheltering in place and mostly looking at Zoom or Twitter or email inboxes, all of that serendipity, particularly outside of the organization, goes away. And so the end result of that is that products like ours that enable people to have that digital layer to understand that level of connectivity and to maintain that connectivity out of the organization and become even more important. And so as we've looked at kind of our own analytics and the way people use our product, I'd say for a while, there was a slight dip as people figured out what was happening in the world, but then honestly came back with a real vengeance to the point where there were like users who were historically like light users of the product that became everyday power users. We saw people setting kind of different sorts of reminders and preferences in the system at really high rates that have resulted in honestly kind of record months from usage from us. And overall, we've even seen that impact the growth of the business, where I think the nature of a product like ours is that it's about connection, it's about communication, it's about relationships. And so when people talk to one another about what they use to navigate situations like these, our products tend to come up. And so we've seen some pretty meaningful kind of growth in the top of the funnel as a result of the differences in how people are using products like ours.
And Brian, I want to transition to you to talk a little bit about venture capital. I interview companies and cover them all the time when it comes to fundraising. And this year, a lot of them have told me, it's been more difficult, right? It's harder to get that meeting sometimes. And, as people sort of tighten their pockets, it can be, more difficult to ask for cash. And this year, M1 Finance has raised nearly $80 million, right, just in 2020. And so can you, walk us through what it's been like fundraising in a pandemic, in an economic crisis? How have investors been responding to you? And was it difficult? Was it easy? Like, what was your experience?
Yeah, for sure. So we were very fortunate to be successful in the fundraising rounds during all the uncertainty, but it was over 2 different fundraising rounds. And so we had a $33 million Series B that was more early 2020 and a $45 million Series C, which completed recently. And they were like, we were successful at both and so fortunate in both, but they were very different from a difficulty perspective and what we had to do. That, early, the Series B, we were in the finance space. We offer an investing platform. The stock market drops 35%. There's a ton of economic uncertainty. The venture capitalists were unsure whether they had to support their companies, let some go bankrupt, what happened to, their funds moving forward and commitments and stuff like that. And so for that, we were very much selling the company and, trying to paint the vision of what we were going to build over the next 5, 10, 15 years and how that can turn into a very valuable company. But it was difficult. We got quite a bit more no's than yes, but it only takes one yes. I think the nice thing as things progressed to our Series C is it was much more driven by inbound interest and demand, given the growth of the company, that we started 2020 with $800 million on the platform. We passed $1 billion in February. We passed $2 billion 6 months later. We're sitting at $2.5 billion now. So 3x the business with meaningful scale in the over the course of 2020. And there's a trajectory towards being a very large, valuable financial institution. And, we have plans to continue to accelerate that growth curve, not just maintain it. And so at that point, it was investor demand, and it was much more driven by the traction and trajectory of the company. And so two different paths. I would say now we have seemingly turned the corner that venture capitalists do have a lot of money that they get paid to put to work, and they're always looking for good ideas. And so, I think there was a lot of ambiguity in the March, April, May timeframe. I think that wallets have opened up a bit more, and people are very eager to fund the next big thing.
Got it. And so what would you say has, contributed to M1's user growth? You guys are up to $2 billion in assets. Why are people turning to M1 or, sort of other companies like it at this point in time?
I think if you look at consumer applications outside of finance, they're a hell of a lot better than the ones inside of finance. And it doesn't really make sense because finance is something that everybody has to do. And so, like your Chase account, your brokerage account, your, like Fidelity or Schwab account should be as good, if not better, of a consumer finance consumer application as Netflix, Facebook, Twitter, sort of, Amazon, whatever the like premier delightful products that you use on a day-to-day basis. And I think M1 has just taken that ethos of, we can design a consumer application that is on par with the like delightful user experience that people have, and we can digitize it, which makes it much more efficient, much lower cost, integrates the whole. And so, fundamentally, I think we offer a better product at a better price. And it is something that people have trillions of dollars held in overpriced, outdated financial firms. And I do think there's going to be a migration to new tech-enabled services like M1 over time. And it's really just the sort of like starting of the curve of the trillions of dollars of money movement over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
So, I just imagine that leading a company at any point in time is stressful and very challenging. And, building a startup from the ground up is probably one of the most difficult and exciting things one can do in their life. But, particularly during a global pandemic, I'm sure the stress is even higher. So what have you each, learned throughout this pandemic and this year? What are lessons that you'll be taking with you even after this period is over and, perhaps things go back to normal? What are those like leadership qualities you've gained during this time? And we can start with Brian if you want, since we were just chatting.
Yeah. I think any time is going to be pretty uncertain. I mean, like 2020 will probably take the cake and be pretty unique, or hopefully so. But I do think like any given time, there's going to be like big periods of uncertainty. And especially in the startup realm, you have to embrace and accept the uncertainty. If you want that stable, what does my career look like over the next 15 years? There are big corporate bureaucracies that you can sort of march the ladder up and take that path. I think in the startup realm, it is much more of there's a big valuable company to build here. And it really fundamentally matters what you do over that time to make it happen. And so for me, like try to get a little bit less focused on the what's happening or the noise, and sort of embrace that like there's going to be a ton of uncertainty. Only focus on what you can control, sort of systematically plan, strategize, execute on it. And over time, the fundamentals matter. And I think you don't want to get too distracted, sort of spinning your wheels on right place, right time, what's the macro environment and the like. It's really, are you doing the stuff on a consistent basis to really build the most valuable company that you can?
Allison, what have you seen or learned this year about leading a company?
Yeah, I think Brian's point is such an important one. And I've found just clarity of focus is so key, because when the world outside is so uncertain, people are really looking to work to be more. It's been a really just interesting year for us. I think, psychological safety, leading with compassion have been two kind of ways that we've really tried to lead for our team. Our team in particularly is about 70% caregivers. So in the early months of the pandemic, many of our parents at home had no childcare. And so we just had to be really patient and like get through it. It's so core to our ethos, but it was hard. Like work still got to get done. And like that balance of wanting to be there for your people and still having to grow is a real conflict. I think, as we're shifting our workplace to be remote simultaneously, like how are we giving the team the right tooling? How are we making communication democratized? Because I've seen people kind of cluster more. And so the cadence of the communications has been really important for us. During the pandemic, I was sending daily notes to my team. Like they really, I think, as the world outside is just so uncertain, like leaders have to be doing more and being more transparent. So it's been an interesting 6 months, but I think we've come out of this as a much stronger organization. The trust that we've built has been pretty incredible to see.
Mm-hmm. Linxin, what about you?
Yeah, I feel like it's always about hiring the right people, the great people, and also building the right culture. I realize it's so important, especially during the pandemic. For example, when the pandemic just happened, we grow so fast. So it's like in our company, it's like so many people have a strong ownership. They care about the company, and also so many people we just work very hard voluntarily to make sure we can still provide the same level of service to our customer, to our driver, to the restaurant. It's like people just communicate to the restaurants and also help recruit driver, just to do everything we can do to keep up the growth. So that's really helpful for us. And also as a leader, I agree with Allison. It's about being transparent, how is the business doing each week and where is the company going. Just to keep everyone on the same page, keep everyone aligned with the company strategy. And I think that's very important. And in this way, you can build a strong ownership, in the company. So, yeah.
Ablorde?
Yeah, for me, the answer would probably be compassion. I think this has just been an incredibly difficult year for people in a lot of different ways. Like we've got hundreds of thousands of people dead. And so that's very likely going to affect like family members, if not directly members of our teams. There's people shifting to remote, at least in our case, for the first time we were doing that. Lots of other macro issues happening in the world. And so I think we're all as early stage companies like conditioned to drive really hard and want to make our companies like big, but big on a sort of a time frame as we can. But at least for me, probably the biggest lesson is just compassion to a team as we all navigate through this together, and honestly also to our customers who are going through a lot of the same issues in their own like lives that we are. And so kind of being the place that they can see as comforting and that helps them accomplish where their work and as streamlined and as good of a way as possible is something that I've certainly taken away from all of it.
I just want to remind our viewers that we will be taking questions at the end of this. So if you have them, please send them to the chat. We'll be getting to those pretty soon. But I want to transition a little bit away from the COVID discussion and talk about, some of the other issues going on in the world and in our society. This year there's been sort of a reckoning with social justice in our country and in our world. And I, want to ask each of you, how have you approached diversity, equity, inclusion differently this year? Whether that's prioritizing it or expanding it, or, if it's always been a core principle at your business, how do you go about ensuring that each and every employee feels safe and valued at your company? We can start with Ablorde.
Sure. So diversity, equity, inclusion has always been a principle of our company. Like on day one, essentially my co-founder David and I kind of wrote out the 5 values for the business, and that kind of was one of them that we've always held pretty dear. I do think that with all of the events, I probably have shifted my own approach to this, and that as a Black male CEO, like I don't particularly, or at least I generally speaking, don't walk around with my experiences on my sleeve. Like I just tend to spend a lot of my time and energy focused on the work. And I think this kind of environment that has become a little bit more like national in nature has led me to be a little bit more forthcoming about my own experiences of being a Black man in the workplace and a Black man in America. It's also led to our team having a bunch of really interesting and important dialogues. So we've all kind of collectively read books and had kind of the conversations that I think historically I would have been loath to participate in such a public way. And then as a team, as we even thought about our own recruiting, we've been kind of fortunate to have a pretty diverse team as a starting point, but it's certainly continued to be a factor in how we kind of consider future applicants and what we want the long-term composition of our team to be.
Okay. Linxin?
Yeah, the diversity is definitely, the most important thing in our company. And because I'm a Chinese, so I'm a minority also. So it's like, especially this year, we grow so fast, actually our HR is working harder toward it. So yeah, our company is all about meritocracy, I don't think, people should be judged by the color or race. That's kind of, uh, um, you know, uh, unreasonable. So yeah, that's all my point of view.
Allison?
Yeah, diversity has always been at the core of what we're doing, having founded the business to unlock the potential of moms who I felt have been really disproportionately penalized in the workplace. So, I think this year has really put in a heightened focus around ethnic diversity. Late last year, we hired Sonia, who's our head of DE&I, and so she's done a really incredible job putting firm goals around recruitment, advancement. We launched about 8 ERGs where we bring the team together monthly, which has been really, really cool to see the teams come together in a really honest and transparent way to share like their shared challenges. Also, in light of everything going on in the world, all of social injustice, we launched a 501c3 because I saw there weren't enough women of color represented in the types of work that we were serving. And we needed a new vehicle to be able to move at this more quickly. So through our 501c3, we launched a platform called Rise, and we've made a commitment to elevate over 10,000 women over the next 3 years into technical certifications with Google, Salesforce, and Microsoft that will have substantive impact on their earning potential. We know that women of color have been most hit by the pandemic. And so we're just really trying to think about how do we use our platform to help accelerate the progress for them and their families.
Got it. That's really great. That's awesome. Brian?
Yeah, I think it always similarly has been sort of core and foundational to M1. The exciting thing about the growth that we've had is it just gives us more resources to focus on it and do it at a larger scale. That 5 years ago when we were starting the company, it was me and 4 other people around a table, and we were begging people to come to work for us and trying to convince them that it was the right thing to do and lucrative. And I think they're thankful. But now we have dedicated recruiters, we have HR, we have policy, we have the ability, like we're going to be double. We started the year with 38 people, we have 80, we're going to be doubling over the next 12 months. We just now have the option to be significantly more impactful in the scale at which we're doing decision, and the resources to sort of go out and broaden outreach, have programs dedicated to certain things, spend time and sort of spread the like education material that we can bring into the company. And so I think it's important. The 2020 events obviously put a spotlight on everything, but we were able to plant the seeds early on. It'll bear fruit over, long periods of time, and really able to do it at a larger scale as we continue to grow the company.
Got it. We have some audience questions. So this is for everyone, I believe. What does growth into new markets look like for your companies? Has the pandemic changed your views on international expansion in any way? We can start with you, Brian.
So, M1 really wants to be a comprehensive financial platform. So every single person comes and manages all of their finances on the M1 platform across your investments, your borrowing, your spending. And in the background, software is automating and optimizing it. And so we want to offer any suite of products that you would be able to have at a brokerage, an asset manager, an insurer, a bank, anything like that. And so we have sort of broad expansion plans across all of those lines. Unfortunately, the international thing is regulations make it really tough. So, necessarily so as we're dealing with people's money. It's just, every market that you go into, it's starting from scratch. So it makes it a little bit more difficult to do cross-border type stuff. So we're going to be focused on the US for the foreseeable future.
Allison?
Yeah, we're also focused on North America. I think the cool thing for us is that we used to think about like enterprise customer growth, like a BP launching in Houston and taking a market by market approach. The number of jobs that are fully remote has more than 4x. So we no longer have those geographic restrictions, which really opens up the supply and demand capability. So.
Okay. Linxin, I imagine that in food delivery, I mean, global expansion is ideal, right?
Yeah, for us, it's just we try to, grab this kind of opportunity, like grow faster. Actually, we just launched Toronto in July. Actually, 3 cities in Australia in September, and they are doing very well. So yeah.
Ablorde, do you guys have users globally these days?
Yeah, we've kind of always had users globally, so this particular kind of pandemic shelter in place didn't impact that dramatically. I would say that the overall growth in the business is probably driven in part by this kind of pandemic of people wanting to stay at home, and so it's probably the geographies where that's been most aggressive are places where we've seen most of our growth. So that's tended to be in the U.S. and in a couple of specific other countries, but we've been internationally expansive since day one, I guess.
And so I'm assuming that everyone, I mean, since mid-March, right, is working remotely. You guys aren't back in the office full time or anything these days. Nope. And you've all, from what I reported, been adding employees this year and onboarding new people, right? And so, this is an audience question, but what challenges are you facing when you're growing and building these teams in a distributed environment? What's hard about hiring new people right now? We can start with anyone. Just jump in.
So I think we have two bigger difficulties in it. One is just the comfort with your coworkers, that there is a work component to things, but people don't show up and work perfectly straight from startup, the start of the day to the end of the day, and there is camaraderie associated with it, and it's just more difficult to build when it's not having the lunch together, the coffee together, the afternoon drinks. And so I do think there's a social component that it's hard to just build general comfort and not have it feel super transactional, where you're delivering me something work related, I'm delivering you, and sort of build that camaraderie of we're on the team together and enjoy each other's company. And then the second thing is I think it's been more difficult for newer people who are entering the workforce for the first time and sort of doing the acclimation from what a college or high school environment would be to the first workplace, and sort of the corporate culture, for better or worse, associated with that. And so, I think that has been the two difficulties is, just becoming friends with coworkers at a remote location, and then onboarding people who have not had corporate experience before and getting them just accustomed to what a work life is like.
Yeah, well, I think this is certainly true for us. As we've grown the team somewhat materially during this time, we've had to change our processes in a way that not only kind of reflects a world in which we're remote, but also in a way that accommodates kind of functions kind of multiplying, so to speak. And that's easier to do when you're all in a room together with a set of whiteboards where you can actually go and hash out those problems, and a little bit more challenging to do via, what can be a loud and noisy Slack instance. And so those are conversations that I think we would historically had far more easily when we were in the same room together, that I think has been a lot harder for us, and certainly has impacted, to Brian's point, how quickly we're able to get new people kind of fully acclimated to the ways that we operate.
Yeah, for us, it's because we have a different office in different cities. Before, we kind of used to remote work, but it still felt very different. For example, in Q3, we hired about 150 people. Actually, it's so many people I've never met in person. It felt a little strange. But for the productivity side, actually many people say they feel they are more productive. When they wake up, they just work and eat, then work, then sleep, right? So it's like a Zoom meeting back to back. So I don't know, but I still, maybe once this ends, I still want to go back to office to meet each other. So, but let's see.
Yeah, I think it really varies by function too. Like our CTO was already so adept and accustomed to managing his team remotely that the transition has not been too difficult, versus like new salespeople. I was often accompanying them on customer pitches and giving them pointers. So I think, you know, it's definitely been dependent on function. And as we've looked to make senior leadership hires, really kind of putting higher weighting on leaders who have a lot of experience managing distributed teams.
Well, this is all the time that we have for our panel. So thank you each for coming and doing this with us today. I found it really helpful. I'm sure a lot of our viewers did as well. So thank you so much. At this time, we're going to transition to the next part of our event. So I think you guys can turn off your cameras and hop off here. We're going to unveil the Blazer winners within our Inno on Fire list. So, you know, just to recap, the Blazers are the top person or company from each category within our Fire list, and it's a special designation given to those who are trailblazing new paths in their category and industry. So we are going to roll the video and reveal our Blazer winners now. Hold on. In one moment. Okay.
right, great. Well, congratulations to all the Blazer winners. Again, those were Ship Bob, the Mom Project, M1 Finance, Chowbus, Cancer IQ, 4 Degrees, and Samara Hernandez. A lot of familiar names there. Congrats to those folks, and congrats to the entire 50 on Fire list. Be sure to check that out at chicagoinno.com. You can read more about those companies and everybody on our Fire list this year. We were really thrilled with the quality of folks on that list, and everybody who is able to join us for the event today. We are going to continue things with a Zoom networking event. Basically, the plan we're using here, this Zoom webinar, doesn't allow us to do that on this Zoom, so we're going to do that on a new Zoom link. So Kat, I believe, has copied and pasted the link to the new Zoom in the chat channel. So if everybody wants to migrate over there, we'll do a little Zoom networking. It's, you know, after 4 o'clock on a Thursday of election week, so certainly fair game to bring a drink, I think, if you want to partake in that as well. So let's hop on over, if you guys want to the Zoom link in the chat, and we'll do a little networking. Thank you guys so much for being here, and talk to you in the next Zoom window.